searching the sky for one final glimpse of you waving goodbye. Solids, liquids, liquids to air. We used to be, but now we're vapor. Solids to liquids, liquids to air. We used to be as steady as a stone, but now we're vapor. 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 The earth is the Lord's and all the fullness thereof. For he has founded it upon the waters. Who shall ascend the hallowed hill of God? Who will be welcomed into his holy temple? Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who do not lift up their souls to what is false. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who do not lift up their souls to what is false. They will receive the blessing from Jehovah, righteousness from the God of their salvation. Such are the daughters and the sons who seek him, who seek your face, O God of Jacob. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who do not lift up their souls to what is false. Give me clean hands. Give me a pure heart. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who do not lift up their souls to what is false. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who do not lift up their souls to what is false.
Just waking up, already late.
need some coffee, but it's 7:45. Clothes are still wet, hair is a mess. Boss on the phone, nevertheless. Hope I left my keys on top of the desk. Just another day in this topsy-turvy life in which we live. But Jesus, I know that I have you. I know some way to pull me through. Just another day in this topsy-turvy life in which we live. But Jesus, I know that you are able. I know some way you pull me through this crazy life. Say a short prayer, head out the door. Pump on the gas, try it some more. Just a minute left, I'm cutting it close. Thankful for you, guide me today. A bit overwhelmed, sometimes afraid, but you're here with me each step of the way. Just another day in this topsy-turvy life in which we live. But Jesus, I know that I have you. I know some way you pull me through. Just another day in this topsy-turvy life in which we live. But Jesus, I know that you are able. I know some way you pull me through this crazy life.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back on a beautiful, chilly Monday morning. Glad to see you all here. So chapel today, or this session today, is going to be a follow-up to what we did on Friday. And we didn't want to take too much time on Friday to take it away from Deanne, but we did want to talk a little bit more about what this series is and a little bit of the framework behind it. Once I've done that, then we are going to bring Mark Maxwell in. He'll be speaking to us from his house as he's in isolation after his trip. So he's going to come in and talk to us about cultivating your competency, which is the next step in this series. So this series, the Calling and Career series, we've instituted this year. One of our goals for students, all of you, that come through our educational process is that by the end, you will be able to secure 2 job offers in a field that is appropriate and fitting for your educational path. And so we want to do more on our side to help get you there. Obviously, that's a lot on you, but it's on us to be a part of that process with you if you are a student at Prairie. And so what I want to do is just walk you through a framework that we're thinking through on how to get you ready and what you need to do to be ready for that goal to become reality. If you wouldn't mind flipping forward to the next slide, guys upstairs. Perfect, thank you. So this here, we're calling this the Life Launch Pyramid. These are the building blocks necessary for you to have a successful and thriving career. Now, obviously, we're not going to accomplish all these things at Prairie. A lot of this is what you bring in. A lot of it's what you do after here. But ultimately, what you want is to fill up as many of these building blocks as highly and fully as possible to be ready to succeed. So I just want to walk you through the model just briefly, just in a couple minutes here. And the first thing I want to comment on about your education, this is true of any post-secondary education that you will take part in, is that it will both be an educational, and that means transformational experience, and it will be a credential. You're buying both those things when you pay your tuition, as long as you do your part in them. Now, the educational part means that you will become a different person by the end of your educational experience than you were when you started. The credential means that you will have a stamp of an institution saying that you've undertaken their educational process. Now, these should be the same thing, roughly. The credential should mean you're this kind of person, but it doesn't always, and we know that, right? Both your starting point, the amount of effort you put in, your own direction and trajectory is going to make a big difference in how much these building blocks get filled up during your educational experience. So when you go to get a job at the end, having a credential is important, But if the credential has nothing behind it, meaning you haven't invested in your education itself, you've just managed to get you guys know the saying, D's get degrees? Yeah? Yeah? It's true, but D's don't help you get very well prepared for your future. All right? So it's one thing to get the credential and get out of here and get the degree in your hand. It's another thing to actually be ready to succeed in what you want to succeed in life. So let's walk through this model just really briefly. I'm going to go kind of in reverse from the tip down. So at the top of the model, we have your ability, your job search skills, your ability to land a job. Okay, so that's your ability to interview, your ability to search out the right kind of job, to write a resume, do those sorts of things. That makes sense if you want to get a career, right? You need to be able to actually land a job. So we're going to put more effort into helping you do that. There's obviously a lot of resources out there. Some of you already know how to do this, but we want to put more resources into helping you do this throughout your experience at Prairie. So that's part of what these series are going to be about. In particular, next semester, we're going to look a little bit more at some of these details. Below that, the next two rungs of the building blocks are job and industry knowledge. All right, so if you want to be a nurse, you need nursing skills. If you want to be a pilot, you need pilot skills. You need to have the appropriate knowledge and credentials and all those sorts of things for the job specific. Now, what's interesting about this is some jobs require very specific, and some jobs actually don't really require that much. They'll train you on the job if you're the right kind of person. So it really depends what you're aiming for, whether or not, what you need in those categories. A lot of times when people look at education, post-secondary, they say, I just need the top of the pyramid. I need the job skills to get the job, and that's true for a lot of jobs. But we often don't look deeper down the pyramid, which is where the basis of success often comes from in your career. So if we go a little bit further down, we see there's the professionalism competencies. And this is what employers complain about the most with post-secondary students. They come out with engineering degrees, they come out with ministry degrees, they come out with these technical certifications, these credentials, and they don't know how to work and succeed in the workplace. Show up on time, work with colleagues, get a project done, make a presentation, work through conflict, general things that you need to do to actually be able to succeed in the workplace. And so that's an area that college education typically has been weak in, and something we're thinking about how do we help you in. But the onus ultimately for your own success in life is going to be on you. And so this is something that if you want to succeed in a career, just getting the credential, like I mentioned at the beginning, only takes you part of the way. You need to be able to actually succeed in a work environment. And so this is a part of the pyramid that often people get frustrated in because they have a lot of education, a lot of experience, and they can't translate it into success in the workplace. So an area we want to put more emphasis in our training with you, and an area to put emphasis in yourselves. Yes, showing up to class on time is, it's your own education, but in terms of creating a culture for yourself to succeed in the future, showing up on time, handing in every assignment on time, doing it well, these are the building blocks of being able to succeed in the corporate or professional world. But now if we go below that, we get into the real meat of the issue of your success in life and career, which is who you are. And the bottom three building blocks of the pyramid are your intellectual foundation. And so that includes both what you know and how you think and can process the world. And so we obviously spend a lot of time in that in college. And if you're wondering, why do I take these arts and science courses, and why am I, what's psychology got to do with being a pilot, or right? These are building blocks of intellectual foundation, and they often serve as the basis for your ability to grapple and deal with the complexity of the real world. Below that, we get into character formation, getting more core to who you are. This falls into things like your ability to take initiative in the world, your ability to look at a problem and figure out and have the determination to actually go out and solve it, to take agency in your own narrative and not just be a passive bystander, right? And so the more you can develop this integrity, this determination, this ability to have grit and resolve, right, is obviously a foundational element of your success in life to accomplish what you've been called to accomplish. And for sure in any job, the job skills itself won't help you push through the hard times. They won't help you succeed where you really need to dig deep and have that internal solidness to who you are. And then the last rung of the pyramid, and probably more appropriately would be right in the middle. This is the core of who you are as in spiritual formation, who you are as a person before God, how you've been transformed, who God's made you to be, and how you're growing into that. And you can see this all the time, that people have a lot of success in life, a ton of success. They have this type of character that lets them succeed, and they get to the end of their life and it's empty. and they've missed something really important, and they have not been formed by God into the person that God has made us to be. And so if we're going to put a point of emphasis here at Prairie into one part of this pyramid, it obviously goes right to the bottom. It's the foundation of who you are. It's the foundation of your life, and it's what we care about most. But it's ultimately, this is the one that we can actually affect. We can create the environment for the most, but we can affect the least. This is you engaging with God and engaging with your community in honesty. But absolute foundation to your entire life and career starts here. So if you wonder why we put so much time and effort into it and believe in it so much, it's not just for your success in career, but your success in life and for what God's called you to do in the kingdom. Now, you can see a line running beside the pyramid. That is, it kind of runs throughout the entire educational process, and that's your clarity and your momentum as a person in life. And so obviously your chances of getting a job at the end of this are much higher if you have some sense of direction and clarity throughout your time in your education. And so it's an area we want to put emphasis into helping you discern more. And not that you need to know exactly what you're going to be doing, but if you have no direction of where you want to go, often what we find is people spin their wheels a little bit more and stagnate a little bit more. And people who have direction invest in all areas of their educational process more highly. So it's an area that we want you to put lots of thought and time into discerning, and we want to be there to partner with you in that. And that's going to lead me into my segue for the next session, which is with Phil or Ozzy. Some of you have already signed up, which is great. We have 15 seats available for the first session. If we have lots of demand, I'll talk with Phil and see if he'll open up a second session. It's going to be a more interactive workshop on discerning career direction specifically. So that's on December 2nd. It'll be in the afternoon, I think 1 to 3 o'clock. And so if you want to sign up for that, now Phil or Ozzy, just so you know, he's a Chick-fil-A executive retired as well. He's done the Harrison assessment. He's qualified to take people through the Harrison assessment, which is a lot of things, but part of it is a career assessment. So he's going to be doing that with the people who sign up for the workshop. And so the more we can help you get clarity both on who God's called you to be and then specifically where he might be pointing you to go career-wise, we want to do that because that really helps develop and give shape and structure to how you want to develop as a person in all these other ways. All right, so that's the pyramid. That's all I'll say about it for now because I want to bring Mark Maxwell in to talk to us about cultivating your competency. So he's going to talk to us for about half an hour and share some of his thoughts and journey throughout his life and in relative to career. And then same as on Monday, we'll have about 5 to 10 minutes at the end where if you text me your question, I will ask Mark and he'll respond to it. So again, be thinking of questions. We'll put my number up at the end and you can shoot those over to me. All right, Mark, I'll hand it over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Dennis. I'm assuming that I'm on the screen because I'm watching on another machine. It's distracting because I'm watching you on this other screen because we're delayed. First, let me say thank you to the families. This is my first opportunity to get in front of a microphone with you and say thank you to the families who were over in the lounge. I understand they felt a little bit neglected, and I didn't intend that at all. When we first heard about that idea, I thought it was a great ways because then the families could meet together, kids could be all over the floor and all that kind of stuff. I don't in any way intend to second class the families. If anything, I want to put first class markers on all their kids and second class on the students and third class on those of us who are on faculty and staff. So we appreciate you families. We're grateful for you. And if we can find a better location for you than the lounge, let us know what you think that is and we'll be happy to work with it. In the meantime, we're faced with COVID. I'm kind of getting tired of this whole topic, but anyway, we're faced with this COVID thing that's actually causing us to reduce our concentration. I have looked in Kirk Chapel occasionally and thought, oh my word, we've got way too many people in here for this thing to be COVID compliant, and I think we all know that. But at the same time, we're trying to do things in a way that's safe and respectful to the government, and going to allow us to keep the school open. So things are changing, especially this week. Now, Dennis said that I'm calling from home. Just so you understand, I'm actually still in our daughter's home in Great Falls. I'm down in the basement. They're all playing upstairs, and we decided we needed an extra day with our grandkids. That was just for us. So we stayed down here for an extra day. We're coming back this evening. So I'm actually calling from Great Falls, and we're going to try this fast track thing and see if it works, to allow us to be less than 2 weeks in quarantine as we come back. But we have missed them. The last time we were down was mid-March, and as we came back from Great Falls, we went into lockdown and closing the school on that March. It was also a Friday the 13th, and then on Sunday the 15th, we made the decision that we had to go with what the government was saying, close the school. And here we are again down in Great Falls. This does not seem to bode well for the school whenever we come down to Great Falls. That was our last time in 8 months or something like that. Anyway, one last thing by way of opening. Let me open in prayer, and then we'll get to work. Our Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the privilege of working. It is such a great privilege to work, just to work. We thank you for the fact that you're interested in our work and that you will help us in our work. And so guide us in this conversation. Give us one or two good ideas for how to improve in our career tracking, and help us to do it in a way that brings glory to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So Dennis, thank you so much for this series. I'm excited about it. I think the idea that each of you would have a choice of 2 jobs as you graduate is a really, really exciting idea. Now, again, like Dennis said, it'll be up to you on whether or not you have an offer or 2, but here's some ideas that will help. But we're going to help you as much as we can open as many doors as possible. I've got 7 points here. I've got 30 minutes. If we don't get through all 7, I'll try and skip the collateral ones. But the first thing that I wanted to do was give you this idea of a career is often something of an oscillation or an accordion, where at this point you are thinking broadly and preparing broadly. And then gradually, as you become more and more expert, you will become much more focused. You go from sort of being a mile wide and an inch deep to being an inch wide and a mile deep. And when you are at your peak in competency, you will be an expert, arguably one of the best experts in the industry, in your country. So, think of yourself as having this potential of becoming one of very few people who are true, genuine, deep dive experts in an area. Now, you don't want to actually get there too quickly, because you do need all of these other skills, because as you prove your expertise in this one little area. So, for example, I started out, Trinity Western was my undergrad, and I did 1 year of Bible at Prairie. So that's an answer for some of you who have been wondering, did Mark ever go to Prairie? The answer is yes, for 1 year, and I did a complete deep dive on Bible. Then I went back to Trinity, finished my undergrad. Then I went to Baylor. So those were my broadest level. That was that foundation preparation for life. And I really, really needed the Bible that was being delivered at Prairie to help prepare me for the career that I was heading into. And I just sort of, okay, I guess I've got to get back to Prairie to get the deep dive on Bible that I needed. But that was all part of that foundation. And then I went for an MBA. Actually, first I went into sales, and then I went, after a couple of years in sales, I went in for an MBA in finance. And then after that, I went into banking. And then I went into investment banking and investment management, specifically in financial services. Then after that, I became more of an expert on the whole market. And then I began looking after firms, built a couple firms, sold them. And then I became more of a governor. And so this oscillation in your career, don't be frustrated if you're not quite here yet, because that will come as you find your areas of focus. So this oscillation is something that's a natural breathing pattern of a career. Or you might look at it as this way: high level, deep dive, high level. Once you become a senior executive, and then people say, well, you're flying at this 40,000 foot level, you're a high level thinker. And I have people say that to me. That's actually not accurate. When you're an executive, you still have to do these deep dives, but you do them for much shorter periods. And you do a deep dive into an area that you're responsible for or looking after. So for example, at Prairie, I will do a deep dive into enrollment, and I'll dig in as far as I need to figure out what's going on there. And then I get back out of it and I go over and I look at finance. And then I get back up and I go over and look at programs. And I get way down into the dirt. And in the weeds, I start to figure out, because really all I am is a coach helping people work on their area. And then I get back out of there. But the truth is, executives are very detail oriented. Never think you get away from the details. The details do matter. So that's part of this whole oscillation breathing thing. An executive simply has to figure out how to get down there really quick, help make some decisions, get back out of there, and let them carry on so you're not mucking with their business and trying to run it. Because actually, if you want to run their business, then go there and work there. That's your job. But if you're going to stay as an executive, then you have to get out of their way so they can actually get the work done, because they will be better at it than you. So that's number one. Think of your career as an oscillation. Number two, last night after I'd made my 6 or 7 points, I went up talking with our daughter. I talked first with Elaine to figure out if she had some more ideas, and she improved on the quality and content. Then I went up and I asked our daughter. Now, so Deborah and Andrew did their 4-year degree at Prairie in intercultural studies, and then he's now moved into the Air Force, and he's an aviation mechanic, works on a C-130, which is one of the transport planes, and his name is actually on the tail. Now I'm bragging as the crew chief. But their intercultural degree helped them in the Air Force, or him get into the Air Force, raised his pay grade. It helped him because he had this broader preparation, but now he's doing this deep dive into it. So I asked Deborah, what advice would she have for someone looking at going into a career? So she's now about 30 and he's about 33. And so they've had this chance to launch, and they have successfully launched their career. And he's now moving through the stages at the Air Force toward crew chief and all that kind of stuff, or is a crew chief and on his way to full chief or something like that. And Deborah said, Dad, it's actually really easy. It's really easy to be a great employee. Really? She says, all you need to do to succeed is be consistent, be dependable, be faithful. And, those are simple little things, like figure it out ahead of time, be on time, be ready to go to work. Don't arrive hungover or high or drunk. Now you're beginning to see how you can begin to make yourself valuable. Call in sick when you're sick. Don't call in sick if you're not sick. That's dishonest. And that's something that's going on in the workforce regularly. She said, if your employer, if your company can count on you to not have affairs, not be cheating on your family, and not be worried about you going through divorce, they can hand you a whole lot more responsibility. So that's point number 2. Be dependable, be faithful. For those of you who heard me talk about Samuel, the first series in the characters, the first in the series called Characters, the Community Chapel, you heard where I think actually Samuel's life message was about being faithful. I think that is a more valuable characteristic than we give credit for, or than we realize is appreciated, or is a rare commodity. So please think about that. I worked on Bay Street, as many of you know, investment banking, and then over in investment management. When I was in investment banking, it's a very fast-paced environment. I loved it. Loved the people that I worked with. But I watched as many of them had affairs and got divorces. I watched as they parked money in hidden accounts different places. And invariably, it hurt their career. This isn't something that's just Christian. It is a good human trait. Choose now, if you're going to be married, to be faithful to your spouse. Choose now to to not, if possible. Now, there are times when divorces are, the best solution. And so I'm not arguing about that. It's just that much disruption will train wreck a career. And I watched it happen time after time to my fellow professionals. And eventually they, got their lives back together, and 5 years later they're back on track and everything's fine. But that's a lot of time lost, and we don't have to do it if we make those decisions. So that's point number 2. Choose now to be diligent and faithful. When you arrive for work, actually really work. I'm going to come to that as one of my closing points. Number 3, the other thing that Deborah said, so this is a Deborah point, contacts are crucial. So they will help open doors. They will help make introductions. For sure, I look back at different points, and I had different people who played very key door opening roles for me in opening doors. So we as a school will help you. If you'd like me to help open some doors for you, I will. But I will give honest references. So be sure that you've prepared your GPA and your work ethic with your, whatever it is that you're doing on campus, because I'll look at those and I will tell other, future employers, this is what we saw. So your work goes with you from here at school. And where you're choosing to be diligent here, it will be part of your reference going forward. It's not wasted effort, it's investing in the future. But contacts are crucial. Treat them as treasures. That's number 3. Number 4, many of you have seen the 4 C's, character, competence, chemistry, and calling. It's a 1-page summary. It's available to all of you. It is our annual review system for all people on staff and faculty. But it's how we look at whether a person is contributing well and growing in their craft. If you use that 1 page, put it in some place where you'll carry it with you, tuck it in the back of your Bible and do a self-assessment, let's say quarterly, with that 1 page. How am I doing on character? Now, we know that all Christians are people of good character, right? No, we actually lie. Have you noticed? We mistell the truth and we hide it under religious reasons. I had to do this for my family, or go to church, or do this. And all we're doing is explaining away our laziness. We cheat. We arrive a little late. We take long breaks. We walk around and chat to everybody because we're good Christians. We're visiting. Actually, you're taking away from the productivity of your day. They will look to us as Christians and say, well, they're lazy. That's bad character. No. We have to be hard workers, diligent, looking after the mission of the organization. Because where we work is the place that God has put us to be the light and testimony for who He is and how much He cares for the world. And we serve Him by serving the missions of our various companies. In investment banking, our goal, finance the companies that needed the financing and make as much money as we could ourselves. Now, most of them were in that business so they could pay off their cottages or their toys. And that's okay. For us, it was so that we could make as much as possible, so we could give as much away as possible. Now, we still way overindulged ourselves, so don't let me get caught up in that one. But the fact is, we were able to give away tons of money and became key components of various ministry efforts around the world. And money is a very important part of what's going on in ministry. And we need people in business making tons of money so that we can have strong ministries that will use that money for good ends. So that's number 3. Number 4, those 4 C's: character, competence. Always be growing in your craft, whatever it is. Always be growing in your craft. Always be improving, so that each year you can look at how you're getting better. Chemistry. I look at this as a 3-legged stool, and you'll say, but there are 4 C's. Yes, I'm coming to that. 3-legged stool. One is character, hard work, diligence, and care. Another is competence. Are we really good at what we're supposed to do? And then number three, the third leg on that stool is chemistry, being a really nice person around a table, constructive, grateful, cheering for the wins of other people. If we do those three things well, then that stool sits long and strong. But the cap is calling. If we're called to do this for God, then that's the cushion on the stool, and we'll go through the difficult times, because every career we have will have difficulty. And there are challenges. And I would suggest to you that actually right now, one of the great challenges in education is COVID, both for you and for us. We're trying to figure this out together. And we don't win by trying to blame you or you trying to blame us. No. We're trying to get this done together, actually. And how we do it well together and sing the praises of each other is how we'll get through this. But this is one of those times when we need to know that we're called. That's the cushion on it. What's interesting about the three legs is some people are hardworking and very competent, and they think they can be prickly. And that's not good, because they're thinking, I am such a hard worker and I am so good at what I do, they just have to put up with me. No. Actually, you can't afford those people because they're destroying team. At the same time, the nicest person in the world who's a hard worker but isn't competent at what they're supposed to do isn't getting their job done. And someone who's really competent, a really nice person but is lazy isn't getting the job done. So it's a three-legged stool that goes tilt one way or the other. You can think about that and you'll easily get it. Maybe for secular businesses, the fourth C should not be calling, but should be cultural fit. And that's fair. There are other models. We got these 4 C's from Bill Hybels at Willow Creek. He used cultural fit. That's okay. I think calling is better for us in our situation. So that's how we've done it. And so I would encourage you to find that 4 C's page and use it for self-assessment. Number 5 I've got down is dress. It's important to dress for the comfort of others. That's number 1. And number 2, dress appropriately for the context. In fact, what we want is for our dress not to be noticed. We want to not have that be a conversation piece. We just want to come in and get right to the business at hand, the mission that we're trying to accomplish, and the other people in the room. And so if you think about your dress that way, there was a book called Dress for Success, and it was bogus. It recommended, white shirts and ties and dark suits and all this kind of stuff, and that would be how you'd be successful. No. That doesn't work if you're going to be a lifeguard. Neither does wearing a swimsuit into a boardroom work. So dress that's appropriate or suitable is the way to think about that. If you're on a track where your aspirational position dresses a certain way, then you'll want to begin dressing aspirationally for the next position. As I left Bay Street, I took off my tie, put my suits in my cupboard, and I said, okay, I am done with ties and suits. Actually, that hasn't been completely true, but it has been largely true that I've not had to wear ties and suits. They're only appropriate for that. That's number 5. So 1, career oscillation. 2, consistency, faithfulness, dependency. 3, contacts are important. That's from Deborah especially. Those 2 and 3 points are from Deborah. Number 4, the 4 C's. Number 5, dress for the comfort of others and for the role that you want to be. And number 6, always contribute more than you take away. Always contribute more than you take away. So when you show up, you're being paid, whatever it is, the $15, $20, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is. Be sure that your work more than earns the $50. Don't try to break even on that $50 an hour or whatever it is that you're making. Walk into it to say, I need to contribute $60 an hour in order to keep my $30 of pay so that they'll want me around. I have thought of compensation this way. there is a certain contribution that each person can make. And most are a little bit shy of that. Very, very rare people contribute more than that. But then there's a cost of paying them. And then there's an irritation cost. If the cost of paying them and the irritation they're causing exceeds their contribution, then I want them gone. They can go and be disruptive somewhere else. But we've got too much. Our mission is too important. Wherever we are, whatever we're doing, our mission is too important to let people stay around and disrupt the mission that we're trying to achieve. So when you think of how you're being paid, only think of that as part of your cost. There is a collateral cost, there is frictional cost, and there is irritation. And if you get up here, you're going to find people wishing you to leave. It's easy to fix, really easy to fix. Work on your contribution and reduce your irritation factor. Really practical. I'm talking about job security. That's number 6, contribute more than you take away. And number 7, live in an attitude of gratitude. I can't tell you this enough. There are always things to complain about. There are always things to grump about. There are always people around that you can complain. But embrace gratitude. I believe it's the sap in the tree of life. And you have that flowing in you, and you begin to say thanks for the things that God has done for us and for you, the work that someone else has done. And you begin to see things a little more freshly and a little more vibrantly. Okay, a couple closing comments. How am I doing here, Dennis? We've got lots of time. Time for Q&A. As I was leaving Trinity Western, so I finished the 4-year degree. A man who had helped me there and had been friends with my family for a long time, that means my parents out in Africa, his name was Dr. Robert Norman Thompson. Dr. Thompson was one of the leading lights at Trinity Western, and he's a great SIM man. And so Dr. Thompson was very much a friend of mine. He simply let me come in as a jungle bunny into his circle. As I was leaving, he sent me a note. Mark, stop by my office before you leave campus. Oh, delighted, happy to go and see Dr. Bob. So I walk in, and we talked a little bit. And he says, I've got only one piece of advice for you. In some ways, I'm thinking of this as my chance to talk to you, my kids, if you'll allow me that. And he was doing the same thing as talking to one of his surrogate kids. He said, when you go to work, never work more than half a day. I mean, really work hard for half a day. Oh, I said, okay, I can do that. He said, no one needs to work more than 12 hours a day. And I was like, oh, okay. When you're working, be sure to give your employer or your partners a full day. Be sure to give them your best time. You owe it to them, and what it will do is it will make you invaluable to their organization and to them as a partner. If you're grateful, you'll be building them up, letting them look good, and they'll do the same. It's the quickest way to receive praise is start singing the praises of others. And I remember Goldman Sachs coming to Baylor University, where we were all, young MBAs and planning to take over the world. So Goldman Sachs, arguably the best investment bank in the world, and investment banking was one of the highest paying industries in North America. So here they were, and we were, young hotshots hoping to get jobs with Goldman Sachs. They actually weren't there to give us jobs or look at us. They were there to make sure we understood how to spell their name. So when we got into positions, we knew who to call to get financing. So I figured that out later. I thought they were there to look at us. But one of the questions that was asked in that seminar with Goldman was, how do you become a partner? What makes a person qualified to be a partner? Is it length of time? Is it type of work? And the answer was really quick. Oh, we make partners out of the people who are invaluable. If someone becomes so valuable to us, we're worried about losing them, then we make them a partner. I'd like to suggest to you, that's a great way to go to your job. Go in there planning to be the most valuable person in your nursing ward or in your manufacturing area or in your sales force or in your ministry. And at some point, people are going to realize this guy is, or this woman is so valuable to us. We got to make sure we look after them. And that's the way to get the pay increases. Become so valuable, they never want to lose you. Lastly, I want to close with the parable of the talents. I mentioned this in the story of Samuel. But I believe there are two ways to look at the parable of the talents. One is we live our lives. God has given us a certain package of talents. And at the end of our lives, we come to the judgment seat and we meet our Maker. And he says, well done, come in and let's look after the universe together. Or it really messed up, right? That's one way. The other way is the parable that the master shows up quite often throughout our lives. He gives us an opportunity. Remember Samuel, he gave him the opportunity to be a boy priest. Wow, a boy priest, 4 years old, and a priest in the temple. And he did well at that. And probably around 11 or 12, he turned into a boy prophet. And then later on, he became a judge and a ruler of Israel. And then when he died, all Israel assembled and mourned for him because he was faithful. But it was God giving him different talents along the way. And I'd love you to think about your career that way. You're given an opportunity to clean out an attic. Do it really, really well where no one sees. And when the attic is clean and someone comes by and says, wow, I want that person to clean the store. Then you come down and you're more in the spotlight and you're cleaning the store. And then on it goes. And that's, I think, an excellent way to look at the parable of talent. God gives us opportunities. Other people will give us opportunities because God put that in their mind to do that. We do really well with that little bit. Because if we're faithful with little, God can trust us with more and much. Okay, have there been any questions? I meant to say we should have the Q&A thing open continuously so that, Dennis, you can be receiving. I hope you've got one or two questions or have one or two that you've canned.
Test. Okay. There's my number up on the screen. Mark, nobody sent me a question yet because my number wasn't up there, but
yeah,
they can now. But let me start while people are thinking and passing a question on to me. I wonder if you can share a little bit about your progression from Bay Street to being a Bible college president, because that's quite a career switch. Looking back, how do you see that progression and how God prepared you and what sort of things prepared you to be in the position you're in now? Because I don't think you anticipated it for most of your working career.
No. I never expected to work at Prairie. Never. I obviously wondered about it, but God took me through some wonderful experiences. I mean, I have loved almost every stage of my career. I had some tremendous opportunities. Flew in the front of planes and rode in the back of cars. What I think the thing that the takeaway on it is, as God opens doors, for me, I don't know that I ever had 2 job offers. So I know that, I suspect we're going to get mocked for that aspiration that we want 2 job offers for every student. And I'm okay with that. I don't know that I ever had 2 job offers, but clearly he opened doors and I would walk through it. And what my grandfather, Maxwell, sort of one of the founders of the school, said was, it's much easier to direct a ship that's moving than a ship that's parked. So sometimes all we have to do is take steps along the way. Now, some of my steps as I was moving, I went into banking and then investment banking. Well, how did they connect? Well, in banking, I became a very narrow expert on balance sheets of large banks. So CIBC, I don't know what their size is now, but at the time when I was there, it was about $100 billion in assets, 100 billion in liabilities. I became an expert on the risk in the balance sheet of different maturities. So you've got loans, those are called assets, that are 5-year mortgages or 30-year mortgages. And we've got funding that's 30-day funding. There's a risk because what if this the deposit interest rates start to go up, and then suddenly your 5-year mortgage goes negative. I became an expert on, I know all of you are asleep by now, but it was very interesting stuff. And so I could tell the bank with one or two numbers what the size of that risk was. And then I also knew how to shut it down. Well, that was easy. All you do is extend your borrowing to match your assets. Okay. What I did, and I only worked at CBC for 3 years, and I became a balance sheet expert, but that made me an expert on the banking industry. And so I was able to go across to being an analyst for an investment bank on the banks and financial services. And so as I became an expert on banks and financial services in Canada, recommending their stocks to buy or sell the stocks, I got to know all of these tremendous people in every major Canadian bank boardroom. And I traveled North America with the chairman of Royal Bank and the chairman of TD, different places, in private planes. Really interesting stuff, really interesting. What a privilege to spend time with these different people. And I would take them in to meet institutional investors. And so one day I took the Royal Bank chairman to Boston, and in the course of one day, we met with the representation of $1.2 trillion, because we met Fidelity and John Hancock and so on. But those were my relationships with institutional investors, and I was able to take the chairman of Royal Bank with me. What a great privilege. What a great privilege. And then I began to work more and more with boards. Now, I would suggest to you, for those of us that work in the secular world, we need a ministry world that we work in, and that means our church or something like that. And those are two legs of a balanced life. So even if you go just into your career, the secular world, you will find yourself with an interest or an aspiration to have some ministry life as well. For those of you who go into ministry, you're going to always look across the fence and wish for the secular world and the secular income. The fact is, the two worlds are both very interesting, and the sum of revenue in the secular world is about 2/3 of total revenue in corporate North America, and the nonprofit is 1/3. In other words, the not-for-profit ministry world is a large business world as well. So there are opportunities, and the grass is green. The grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is green here, and it's there, and you can choose to enjoy your green grass. You can also look across and appreciate the green grass. But most of us lack a bit of both, which is why so many people have careers in the secular world, and then halfway through their life, they make a switch over to the ministry world because they're interested in this as well. And that's great. So my interest was expressed by being on boards. I ended up being on the Prairie Board for 2 terms. Once in the 90s, we had 9-year limits, and then you roll off. And then if a year or 2 later they want to invite you back, they do. It took them a while to invite me back. I think it was off for 5 years. And then they invited me back, and I came on the board, and I was actually chair of the board from 2006, 7, 8, when things were just, it just didn't seem to be clicking. And so the board made the decision, and I was only the messenger who let the CEO go. And then the board asked if I would step in to look after the school for a little bit. So we agreed to a 6-month term while we looked for the right person. And that was, 10 years ago, and we're still looking for the right person. But by them asking if Elaine and I would come and look after the school, what they were actually saying was, would you get off the board? Because I believe in a real solid separation of, especially in charities, of the governance and the executive. So I rolled, the day that I said yes, I rolled out of the chair and off the board to the executive. Now, I don't see them as this way, hierarchy. I see them as this way. And it's just, we have to keep both of them working and functioning well. So I didn't see it as a demotion so much as just, okay, now I'm going to be in ministry over here. And we came out, and it mostly seems to have been working, and so we're still here. Does that answer the question, Dennis?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I got a few other questions here for you. Let's see if we can fit 2 questions in before I hand it over to Glenn. So the first one is, how do you prepare for your career so that you don't feel intimidated stepping out of college into a career?
I'm not sure I have a good answer for that, honestly. At your stage in my career, my constant saying, the rumble in the back of my head was, "You're not sugar." It was, fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. So I pretended to be, confident. I had 1 or 2 tics that typically I have a pen in my hand. That's one of my tics. And it makes it look like I'm taking notes. In fact, I'm doodling and shaking and stuff like that. I did have some meetings where I walked in and I was so scared. My knees were literally shaking. So I don't know that there's a way through it. I think the best answer that I don't know that I ever accomplished is trust in the Lord. He will give you the words that you need. Because out of the well of your preparation right now will come those answers. You don't have to have the scriptures memorized. God will bring them to mind. You've already read them. So those are some answers, but I'm not sure I ever had a good answer. I still walk into meetings. Every time I come to the front of I'm on. Can you hear me?
Back.
I need a thumb.
Yeah, we just lost you for a second.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Every time I come to the microphone in Kirk Chapel, I'm nervous. I try not to let you see it, and I'll never admit it. But yeah, I don't know if you ever get over that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And one last question. How do you survive seasons of failures or feeling stuck and lost?
Yeah. I think that that time, it will happen. And it's the deep dive back to that foundation in Dennis's pyramid. I really believe that because God is faithful. He is faithful both to look after us who love him and are serving him. Life will not be clean and simple. And there will be complications and there will be failures. 2008 for us as a family was a very expensive year. We lost a lot of money in that crash. We learned a lot. That's disingenuous because I felt horrible with the money that I lost. We were the largest single client in the money that we were managing, so we lost more than anybody else, but we were managing our money in the same way we were managing clients. And so we lost pro rata, percentage-wise, the same. And I could hardly face our clients as we lost so much money in 2008. I felt like I should have done a better job. So they will come, and there's where we do a deep dive into the God who loves us, the God who will look after. I just did a devotional for Jude in their search questions. So if you're interested in part of the roots of the school. It was these search questions, which will walk you through the entire canon. We've done it in 2 years, Candy, Dick, and me, and I. I just wrote the devotional, the on-ramp for the little book of Jude. And the message in Jude is God is faithful to deal also with judgment in different, so where someone seems to be succeeding who shouldn't be by cheating or by whatever else, God will be faithful. We don't have to take judgment into our own hands. So those are a couple of answers, but those are good questions because they're tough.
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on those. We're out of time, but if you'll join me in thanking Mark for speaking to us today.
Thank you, guys. Real delight.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. We'll see you when you get back to Canada after you're released. So, and before you all run out, Glenn has an announcement before you take off.
Thank you, Dennis, for giving me time to make a quick announcement. If you'll all speak fast and if you'll listen quickly, we'll be out of here. Since last March, the college administration has been working, first of all, to reopen the college and then to keep the college open for students. We've worked hard and invested much to make that happen. We have been among the few post-secondaries in Alberta to be fully open to on-campus students. We believe it is an important step of faith and courage to keep the college open within the authority of the Albertan government. We remain resolute in that commitment. In that process, we have diligently attempted to obey the government, not only because obedience is right, but also because we take seriously the safety of staff and students. We are grateful to God that as of today, as far as I know, we have no cases of COVID-19 on our campus. And I believe that to craft appropriate protocols, to have no cases of COVID-19, and to have quick, effective response, if we do, will be Prairie's best case for being able to remain open for on-campus students. We are thankful to each of you who have been diligent to follow protocols and guidelines for safety. For those of you who have not followed protocols, please change that behavior for your sake and for the sake of the rest of us. There is no honor in putting yourself or others at unnecessary risk. These protocols are posted on Prairie's website. Because of the rapidly changing nature of the pandemic and the resulting changes of government standards, we also have been trying to respond with our own integration of government regulations into the protocols for our educational community. We recognize that there is some interpretation involved in our decisions and that you may in fact disagree with our interpretation. There may even be inconsistencies in our decisions. We are not trying to be inconsistent, but I'm telling you that inconsistencies can happen when we are making decisions in a fluid situation that frequently is changing. We will continue to make hard decisions with a commitment to do the best we can in a difficult situation to keep students on campus. Be assured, we have every good intention in our decisions to work for students in keeping our campus open. You may be aware that recently, Albertan COVID-19 cases have taken a serious trajectory in the wrong direction. We are at about 2.5 times the number of daily cases as we were at the highest place in the spring. This has precipitated some more decisions that we would rather not make, but let me communicate those to you this morning for at least the next 2 weeks. So I'm putting that timeline on it. However, it's true that the timeline can change. Number one, it will mean a change in indoor fitness and team sports. This includes postponement of volleyball, futsal, and pickup basketball. You may receive instructions from your coaches for individual practice that can be continued. Number 2, group singing. This includes postponement of choir and performing groups. In chapels, the worship team will be singing, but we ask that participants will only hum with masks on. Yeah? Okay, number three, chapel seating. We will need to reconfigure the way we meet for chapel because, as Mark intimated at the beginning of his comments, the risk of the number of people in Kirk Chapel, even if we are seated in impact group cohorts. So beginning tomorrow, that's Tuesday, we will have only a third of impact groups in the Kirk Chapel. We are going to rotate on a weekly basis those groups that meet in Kirk Chapel according to the alphabetical last name of impact leaders. The other impact groups will meet in their normal meeting locations, so beginning again tomorrow, rather than come to Kirk Chapel, for those groups, you'll meet in your impact group locations where chapels will be live streamed. Today, the Chief Medical Officer will again speak publicly. There's a possibility that there will be more changes and we will need to respond accordingly. So I will be in my office this afternoon, and so if you have questions and/or comments that you want to make, I'll try and make myself mostly available this afternoon for you. So I'm sorry to be the Grinch that stole Christmas, but again, our commitment is to do the best we can for students to be able to remain on our campus. That is our intent, our goal, and our commitment under the authority of the Albertan government. Okay, thank you, Dennis. Thank you. You're dismissed. Have a good day.